Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk. I'm Laughingboy, and I'm back again with Tom Fawkes. Hello.
Hello. Good to be back.
I didn't get enough time.
I don't know if you posted any of the other ones that we've done of this, but it's been months since we last did this, so.
Yeah, as of recording, this has been, oh god, like quite a few months. It's been. Yeah. We've both moved. Things have happened, but yeah, we're back and we're gonna finish this off, starting with, we're gonna talk about how to stream, and I think, so, streaming is a very difficult prospect, and I think even today it's probably more difficult, with the expectations, people have in terms of production quality. There's also a lot of programs and services to choose from, and it can be really just a daunting experience when it comes to troubleshooting all of that. So this section is to kind of make it easier for listeners who want to learn how to build their own streaming channel, just kind of regardless of their experience. So for first-timers, this should be helpful. Hopefully, if you've been streaming for a little while and want to learn a little bit more, this should also be helpful as well. So first off, I kind of want to ask, what program are you using to stream?
I'm using OBS. The version I'm using used to be called OBS Studio because there was another like base form of OBS. And then they turned Studio into what we now know as just OBS, which is an open broadcaster system.
Okay. Did you shop around for programs? Did you try some different ones out?
I did. When I first started out, I bought a license for XSplit, because I think if you don't buy a license for it, you're very limited on what you can do with it. I think you're actually limited to what kind of resolution, top bit rate, frame rate, things like that. So I bought a license for that. That was good for a while. Then I switched to OBS, and then I tried to learn how to get OBS Studio to work because I like the idea of having streaming at the streaming. OBS Studio is a thing where you can record your stream in a different bit rate, frame rate, and resolution as what you're streaming. So max out for streams usually is around 8,000 kilobits. But if you're playing something that's visually demanding, then on the stream that's not going to translate very well. So if you want to post the VOD, or I think it's called video on demand is what VOD stands for later, then you want to have something you want to be able to have a higher bit rates, that way it doesn't all get lost, or so that way quality doesn't get lost between the streaming and whatnot.
Okay, so in that instance, you're actually just uploading the stream rather than just using, just exporting the stream to a VOD?
Right, as opposed to having the past broadcast on Twitch, which is running at the same bit rate as you encode it to on that. I record it separately and then post it to YouTube for future consumption.
Okay. Yeah, I personally didn't know about the fact that you could record it at a different bit rate.
Yep.
So that's pretty awesome. Actually,
I don't know if XSplit does that yet, but I know those are the two majorly competing ones are OBS and XSplit. I think Elgato also has their own their capture software could be used as a streaming program.
Yeah, you can actually use the current Elgato software that comes quote unquote bundled with the hardware.
Yeah.
In order to stream, it's not quite as robust. You can't really do the layering quite as well. And I know with OBS, there's a lot of open GL stuff that you can do. So
yeah, there's a lot of mods you can get for it that'll affect how it runs.
Yeah. So did you make any equipment changes when streaming versus when making Let's Plays?
When I first started streaming, yes, because when I first started streaming, I believe I had the Elgato, I think it was the base HD60 when I first started streaming. Oh no, I had a Hauppauge all the way back then. But either way, same issue would arise. The older models of capture card would have a time delay on it. What I would do in the game would appear on the stream 5 seconds later. And so there'd be discrepancies in dialogue and whatnot. And obviously this is when I was first starting out. So at least with streaming anyway. So it wasn't, I had to sort of make do. I bought a license to, oh God, I forgot what the program is called. Basically, like it would run your input through it, and you could set it to like delay. I think it was like line something. I have no idea, but
Okay.
I don't remember what it was. But I would like have this whole setup put in there, so that way, initially it would just have to be so that when I was streaming, I would have to delay my mic so that way it would match up with the gameplay. But if I was streaming with other people, then I'd have to delay my mic, their audio, and and match it up to the gameplay audio, and have the gameplay audio be going through something else. That way it wasn't on the same thing as what I was trying to delay. So it was this whole ordeal. But recently, in terms of like physical equipment, you got all the capture cards that run at the same time as like what you're seeing. So like, I press A in the game and I could play it right off the capture screen, if I wanted to, with a little bit of latency here or there, but not that big of a deal. So I don't have to like use any of that. I don't have any of those issues anymore, but starting off, that was pretty rough.
When you're doing that, are those the external cards, or are you moving towards internal?
I have an internal card. I have when I was starting off, the base HD60 was an external card. Ran through USB 2.0 and did HDMI at 60 frames per second. Now I've got the internal one. I think I also have an HD60S, which is it's the same as the HD60, but it goes through USB 3, and there's no delay between what happens in game and what happens on the capture.
Interesting. Okay. So let's move on to how to set up a stream. So if you are just kind of starting out, or if you want to optimize your video quality, this might be a very helpful section. What does your preferred video setup look like in terms of bitrate, your encoding setup?
So, like, that's going to be an interesting question to answer because I live in an area that has fiber internet. So I could pretty much at any point, have practically unlimited, encoding and bits per second going up to a stream. But in terms of like for everybody else, it's going to depend on your area, your internet service provider, how much you're actually getting in terms of megabits, or if you have fiber internet, gigabits. But like what I usually do is I do it at 6,000 bits, 6,000 kilobits per second. At 720p at 60 frames per second. I could probably actually up that to 8,000 kilobits a second at 1080p 60 FPS, but I don't want to deal with that right now. But that's encoding setup. Let me actually look. I can pop up in the program right here.
Okay.
I think like for streaming, I use NVENC. It might be the other way around, but I've got NVIDIA graphics cards. So that's going to be, NVENC is going to be the one that they end up using for some kind of encoding. I use different encoders for each one, I believe. I can find the output. Here we go. Yeah. NVENC H.264 for the encoder. I have the canvas size set on OBS to 1080p, but I rescale it for the stream to 720p. And then for recording, that is... Oh, no, I guess I can do NVENC for both of them. I thought I have to do two different ones. Okay, nope, I was wrong on that one. I'm using NVENC H.264 for both encoders for both streaming and recording at the same time.
Okay. Hold on, let's listen to my notes for a second.
I'm trying to think of what else is part of this thing here. In terms of, I've mentioned before, streaming at 720p 60 FPS and recording at 1080p 60 FPS. That's really all there is to it. I'm trying to look to see if there's anything else that's like noteworthy here. I guess in terms of like finding a server, you want to go for whatever one's closest to you so you get the least amount of latency.
Right. I know that the automatic can be an option, but I believe that manually setting up a location, or manually setting up with a server is supposed to be more efficient. Yeah,
I'm looking at it right now, and it's kind of weird that for US Central they've got one in Dallas. They've got a server in Dallas, and they have a server in Houston, which that just seems a little weird to me considering how close they are to each other.
Yeah.
I guess I have options then.
Yeah, right. But what about audio, though? Do you have so we've talked about your microphone delay. Do you do anything special other than the default options for audio?
Nope. Literally nothing special. The only thing that I could change is that the mic and the interface I use, which I believe we went over before in a previous episode. Don't quote me on that. It's been a few months ago. Is the Line 6 UX2, which is a tone port. You could plug in like your like a microphone and like I think it was made mostly for instruments, honestly, because there's a lot of instrument inputs on that.
Yeah.
But I have that. I have it set up so to try to get like the best audio quality possible. I could probably fiddle around with it at some point, but on top of that, there's also a bunch of like little effects you could do in it. Like I could make myself sound like I'm from the 20s here. Or like recently I found one where I can make
myself sound deep like that.
So there's just like a bunch of like a bunch of just different effects you can go on there. But that's just like, aside from like bog standard microphone setup, there's really nothing. As long as that's your active input on OBS, you set that up so it's your active input or whatever streaming service you're using, then you're not really going to have too much trouble with a microphone.
Yeah,
honestly, a lot of people generally start off. A good starting mic is anything from like the Blue series, the Blue Yeti, the Blue Snowball. They've got pretty good quality mics there.
Yeah, those are really good and cheap options, especially the Snowball. If you're just starting out, is pretty much one of the more popular starter microphones.
Yeah.
I personally was using SingStar microphones when we started out. I've definitely moved on to Audio Technicas, but when you're starting out,
I do want to look at the Blue Snowball here because like the Yeti has different options that change the what type of microphone it is.
So
there's like open. There's cardioid. There's like a bunch of those. I think the Snowball is just cardioid though.
Yeah, the Snowball is single direction.
Yep.
It is sort of made to kind of be a podcasty microphone if you have multiple people around.
Yeah. More
More so the Yeti because it's omnidirectional.
I mean, the Yeti, like I said, the Yeti can be omnidirectional, but it does do cardioid. It does do I don't remember what all the settings were, but it could do like bidirectional where it's like one person in front, one person in back of it, and it'll record sound just fine that way. It does omnidirectional where it could pick up sound from any direction. It's very versatile that way, but if you don't need all the bells and whistles there, then the Snowball will work out fine. Pretty much the same audio quality too.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever used a headset in terms of streaming?
I use one when I'm going on the road. It's nothing that special. I'm kind of an audio quality snob, so like I'm never gonna get the best quality I can out of a headset unless I go like super professional grade. So it does kind of bug me with the headset I'm currently using I think it's a Turtle Beach XO1, XO4, whichever one doesn't require like a preamp or anything like that. You just plug it into it's like one of those like dual headphone microphone jacks, 3.5 millimeter.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Especially so for like a gamer headset, I think if you want to kind of you can record and stream, and then when you're done doing that, you can use it to play multiplayer games.
Of course.
So, do you believe it better to stream a console game or a PC game?
Oh, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I guess it depends on if there was a choice of playing a game on console or playing it on PC, I'm going to choose PC. Mostly because at this point I've grown used to mouse and keyboard. Generally, if it's a console game, then it won't have. Let's just be honest with ourselves here. Consoles at this point are underpowered PCs. So like, if that's like, but the other thing too is that it's also much more affordable than a PC as well. So if that's what you have to use, then go for it. But I'd say for like peak performance, peak quality and whatnot, then PC gaming is where it's at.
Yeah, and I think especially if you're starting out, there are cheaper options for PC. You may not necessarily have to have as strong a PC for some of those games. And then it does make the streaming experience a little easier because you're not having to do so many pass-through options with capture cards and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, like in some cases that's better because streaming is pretty hardware intensive and gaming can be hardware intensive as well. So if you don't have a beefy system, then you won't be able to run the game to like a relatively good quality and be able to stream it at the same time. I guess that kind of goes with recording as well. So like a lot of people, I hope to be one of these people at one point. A lot of people have PCs specifically made like where it's just gaming or it's just streaming, you know, and they'll hook it up to a capture card and then they'll just have that.
Right. Now, streaming relies a lot on internet capacity. And we kind of already discussed this when it comes to bitrate. But would there be any advice that you could give on streaming quality versus your upload speed?
It's not really a matter of advice. It's just a matter of how good your internet provider is, how good your internet package is. Like when I was streaming from Connecticut, it was 100 up. It was advertised as 100 up, 100 down, I should say. But well, I mean, like the thing with that is, whenever you go to like those speed test websites, they're owned by the people who like run the internet. So like those speed test websites are always going to get priority over. They're always going to get priority over everything else. So it's going to show that you're having like the maximum speed that your internet provider is telling you. But like in reality, you're not actually getting that much. And on top of that, if you're sharing the internet with other people in your house, then you're definitely not going to be getting the speeds that are advertised.
Right.
So honestly, it'll depend. I guess a lot of packages are like, you know, at least the package I had back in Connecticut was 100 up, or I'm sorry, 100 down, 10 up. And, you know, I was streaming at, you know, 3,500 kilobits a second. So, you know, if I, you know, given the opportunity, I could have lost that any second if someone was, let's say, like uploading something that was intensive, or if like maybe the bandwidth like across my neighborhood was low, I wouldn't be getting that at all. Like I had plenty of times where I'd had to just stop streaming altogether because I wasn't getting enough bandwidth and you know, the connection just wasn't good.
Yeah, so I mean, even if you do kind of set your stream up and optimize it to your internet's advertised upload speed, you're still going to potentially
if you set it to your internet's advertised upload speed, you're not going to get anywhere.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if you're doing 30 up, it's still kind of risky to try and do the maximum bit rate.
Yeah.
And that limit, we've already kind of discussed that. That's 8,000 kilobits per second.
I think I don't quote me on this, but I think the upper limit is on Twitch is, at least on Twitch anyway, because there's other streaming services as well, as 8,000 kilobits per second, which is what I've seen a lot of other streamers use when they're going 1080p 60 FPS. But like if you want to, I think like 720p 60 FPS can like, it looks fine at like 3,500 kilobits per second. And if you're not sure on that, then like having it at 720p 30 FPS will save on the quality while keeping the bit rate relatively low as well.
Yeah, so I mean, even setting it to a lower resolution might help if you have to set it at a lower bit rate.
Right.
Maybe not quite so much on a game like Splatoon, but
I mean, like racing games as well. Like I played F-Zero on stream, and it's just like a pixelated mess when you know the speed gets going.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a lot of action in a game, you might, as a streamer, have to look into that to see whether or not is that going to look good.
Yeah,
when you're actually
don't even think about playing Earthbound all the way to the end because oh boy.
Oh wait, seriously, the final boss fight?
Yeah, it really messes with the bit rate on streams, especially like lower bit rate streams.
Oh my goodness. I may have to try and find footage of that someday. Now, speaking of hardware, which we weren't speaking of, great segue, me. Streaming with a 3DS. Have you streamed with a 3DS before?
I have. It's basically the exact same thing as recording with the 3DS. I believe you probably like asked me this question in a previous episode about the 3DS thing, but I had I think the website I got it from was 3dsvideocapture.com, but I don't think the guy is doing it anymore. Or was it 3DS Capture or 3DS Video Capture? It was 3DS Capture. 3DS Video Capture is the other 3DS Capture site, Katsukitty.
Katsu? So you got yours off Katsu? Or?
No, I got mine off of another one. This is the other guy. This one is completely independently run. I think the guy's like somewhere out in Utah or something like that. I'm grateful for what he did because he did me a solid and bumped my order up. Because I think I was probably like pretty low on the list initially, but yeah, he bumped my order up and got it back to me pretty quickly. But like I said, I'm not sure if he's still doing it anymore because the last software update he's put out, it was from for his particular capture device was from June 2014. So that'll almost be 4 years ago from recording this anyway. I got my Wii U gamepad modded for that too. So like if I'm playing, because there's some games on the Wii U where the gamepad has, you know, like the gameplay stuff will be on the gamepad, and if you're streaming it, then people won't be able to see it.
Right. So you actually have to use a capture software and add that to your stream layout.
It's not that bad. It's just like a small it's just a small like program. The program I was talking about, like that hasn't updated since June of 2014. But like you just open that up and you have that as like a window capture on OBS or on the other one that I can't remember, XSplit. And there's like it's if my brain could just function for a second, it's there's no delay on the pass through, so it's very easy to just like to just play it off that screen. Like whenever I stream 3DS games, I'm playing it off of my computer screen. I don't have to like look at the 3DS. The only time I need to look at it is when I have to do like the touch controls on it.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap it up for today's episode. On the next episode, we are going to talk more about streaming and just kind of the process of streaming, like time frame or how to deal with chat. And after that, we will kind of move on to the present day of just kind of your thoughts and feelings about the state of YouTube and Twitch and all that. So stay tuned, and we will be back with more Let's Talk.